Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is The Raptor, and welcome back to another one of my Death Battle discussion videos. A few days ago, I made a video ranking all of the Death Battle Season 8 episodes that have come out so far, and in the comments for that video, there were a number of people asking me if I was going to make another video speculating what the second half of Season 8 could include. And those guys will be happy to know that I was actually already planning out that video, and now I finally have it ready for all of you guys to watch. Today, we are going to be predicting what the final 8 episodes of Death Battle Season 8 could be. Now, I just want to clarify to you guys that this video is not me talking about what I would like to see happen in Death Battle Season 8. I already have like 2 separate videos on that. All these videos and more should be linked in the description, by the way, if you want to go check them out. But yeah, this is not me talking about what I would like to see. This is me talking about what I think could happen, just based on stuff like teases and Death Battle trends, and just my own personal gut feeling. With that being said, though, I know we're still all going to have different opinions regarding what we think is going to happen, so as long as we're just respectful of each other in the comments below, I think that's great. And of course, I am probably going to get a lot of this wrong. Some of this just feels like shots in the dark. And of course, Death Battle is sometimes really hard to predict regarding what fights they're going to do and when, but still, I don't really care too much. This is just me trying my best based on the information that I have and having some fun along the way. So without further ado, let's get on with the video. So of course, we can't talk too much about the rest of Death Battle Season 8 before talking about this guy. Yes, Batman is making his 3rd reappearance on the show. The first time he fought Spider-Man, the second time he fought Captain America, the 3rd time he fought Black Panther, and now we have the Hellbat suit being teased for the next episode. There are a lot of people who are not too happy about this, and I have to admit that I fall into this category quite a bit. Batman is like the incarnate of characters that do not need to come back to the show because he's been used so many times, and it's just better to see fresh faces rather than to have another episode slot being taken up by another Batman episode. However, I will say that if Death Battle did need to bring Batman in again, and apparently they feel like they do because he's here again, then this is honestly the best way to do it. The fact that they're incorporating the Hellbat suit and possibly even more means that we're going to see a lot of Batman that we haven't seen before. We've only seen Batman analyzed with his standard gear, and changing up the conditions of a Batman fight is honestly not the worst idea in the world. In terms of who Batman is going to be fighting this time around, some people are predicting Moon Knight, some people are predicting Spider-Man again, but I personally think that Batman is going to be fighting Iron Man in some way. I'm not exactly sure what the conditions of the fight are going to be. Maybe it could just be that each character has one suit, so Batman gets the Hellbat suit, and Iron Man gets like the God Killer, or maybe one of the busters like the Thor Buster, the Phoenix Buster, Galactus Buster, etc., etc. Or maybe each party will get more than one suit, so maybe Batman will also get access to the Justice Buster or something. I'm not exactly sure. Or maybe it could just be as simple as they both get prep time. But no matter what the conditions of the fight are going to be, I think it's almost definitely going to be Iron Man. This is a majorly requested fight. It's a huge legacy fight, and the fact that we see that the Hellbat suit is going to be used basically guarantees it. Again, Hellbat screams extra material, and really the only opponent for Batman that also has extra material that you could look at is Iron Man. So I think that's what's going to happen. And like how Death Battle did Wally West versus Archie Sonic last year, which in my opinion was the best way to do a Flash versus Sonic fight, this in my opinion is the best way to do a Batman versus Iron Man fight. So yes, ultimately, while I would prefer to not see Batman come back again than to see him come back again, all things considered, this is not too bad. I think this has the potential to be really, really good if they do it right. So yeah, fingers crossed. There are also a few other fights that I think are going to happen that I just want to rattle off really quickly because their explanations are pretty quick. The first one is Dio versus Alucard. There have been teases in both Saberwolf versus John Talbane and in the Doctor Doom preview for Lex Luthor versus Doctor Doom this season that this fight is going to be the Halloween episode for this season. At this point, if they don't do Dio versus Alucard this season, it would just be like the biggest troll move ever. I really find that unlikely. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that Dio versus Alucard is happening this season. And I know that there are a lot of people that also want to see Jason versus Michael for Halloween, but unfortunately, I find that pretty unlikely for this season. The first reason is because I don't think they would want to do more than one Halloween fight. There are only 8 episodes left, and to devote a whole quarter of that to just Halloween seems a little bit of a weird move. And again, Dio versus Alucard is practically confirmed at this point. And also, I think they would probably want to do this fight in live action. I could be wrong, but that would be my assumption for now. And I don't think there's going to be a live action fight this season. One, because they've never done 2 live action fights in back-to-back seasons, and also because they would be filming during COVID or during high points in COVID, and I find that very unlikely as well. So I could be wrong, they might do this fight, but I don't think they will. The next fight that I think is really likely for this season is Galactus versus Unicron. There are a lot of people that think that this fight is going to be the season finale, myself included, and it just makes perfect sense. Death Battle once admitted that this fight was their most requested fight other than Goku versus Superman. This is like the fight for Death Battle to do, and it just makes makes sense that it would be in the anniversary season. And of course, a lot of people already know that this is the fight that I want to see Death Battle do the most, so I am a little biased in that regard, but come on, everyone is expecting this fight to happen. It makes perfect sense, so I really think that this fight is going to happen. I really, really do. And the last fight that I think is particularly likely to happen this season is Macho Man versus Kool-Aid Man. And everybody who's watching this video right now is probably either thinking one of two things. Either, yeah, of course, or what the hell? For those of you guys that don't know, Death Battle has said that for Season 8 they would have fights that they've discussed before or joked about before on Death Battle Cast, and to my understanding, this is like the major fight that falls into this category. This is a major one that a lot of people are expecting to happen this season for that reason, and like with Yoda versus King Mickey, where they were two characters that were banned on Death Battle before and then were unbanned, this is a fight that Death Battle, or the Death Battle channel, has a good amount of history with, so I would not be surprised at all if this one shows up. And just to add on to that a little bit, I also wouldn't be surprised if Death Battle was planning on doing a sillier or jokier fight this season, even if it wasn't this one. I kind of interpret this season as being like the Death Battle season of Death Battle, if that makes any sense. I feel like they'd want to do a lot of things that they're known for, a lot of things that make Death Battle what it is. And sillier fights are a big part of Death Battle, so I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted to do one this season. And besides, there is still technically more of an indicator that this battle is going to happen rather than any other random matchup idea that has no indicator, so for that point alone, I think it just makes more sense to put this one on the list than to leave it out. Of course, I could be wrong, but I'm putting this one on the list. Now, before I move on to the other 4 slots, I feel like I have to bring up a couple of other fights that some people are going to bring up in the comments if I don't talk about them now. This is in regards to the animation segment at the end of Hulk vs. Broly, where Boomstick receives a note from his dad that's handed to him by Dummy. Dummy describes the guy who handed him the note as the Mask, so some people anticipate this means that the Mask could be coming back to fight Freakazoid or Beetlejuice or maybe somebody else, and some people think this means that Sarge could be coming back because he is Boomstick's dad, and he could fight someone like Soldier from TF2 or maybe somebody else. Though I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm not fully convinced that these fights are going to be happening in this season. When I saw that the Mask was being referred to, I didn't even think that that necessarily meant he was coming back for another Death Battle. I thought it was just another cute reference that they do sometimes, like, oh look, the Mask is still running around in Death Battle land, kind of like how Pinkie Pie appeared briefly in Deadpool vs. Mask. So, you know, I don't think it automatically means that he's coming back for another Death Battle. And I'm not saying it automatically means that he's not coming back, but I think some people are a little too quick to say that he is definitely coming back, especially in this season. And when it comes to Sarge, I could more easily see him returning. Like, we have all these Boomstick dad jokes throughout the season, and then we have Sarge coming in to fight later in the season, but I feel like that Boomstick dad arc could just as easily be addressed to during the Wiz and Boomstick animation segments rather than a fight, if it's really going to get a conclusion at all. And it also just seems early for both the Mask and for Sarge to return. In general, I feel like they would probably want to focus more on very popular matchups rather than being too self-referential, especially if they're doing Macho Man versus Kool-Aid Man, which does seem likely. So maybe they're going to do these fights later, but my gut is saying no for right now. You could disagree and I could be wrong, and both of those are fine, but that's what I'm saying for right now. Alright, so now we're finally getting to the other 4 slots, and these ones are really hard to predict because there's really no major indicator for any of them. However, we know for a fact that one of them is going to be episode 150 of Death Battle, and I feel like they want to do something pretty special for that. Of course, they can really do whatever they want. There are a lot of cool fights they could pick for this one, but there are 2 major fight ideas that I think episode 150 could be. The first one being Master Chief versus Samus, and the second one being Thor versus Vegeta. Both of the fights have a second-time fighter and a third-time fighter in them, and both of them are just major legacy fights that are really, really popular. They were also both DBX episodes as well, so the whole channel kind of has history with those fights in that way. I don't think though that there's going to be an overabundance of returning fighters in the second half, since we already have 5 of them in the season so far, and now we're getting Batman and probably Iron Man 2, so I'm not sure if both of these fights are going to be in the second half of season 8, but I think both of them are good contenders for episode 150, at least in my opinion. If I had to lean one way or the other, I would probably lean more towards Master Chief versus Samus. One, because they recently did Hulk versus Broly, and I'm not sure if they want to do Thor versus Vegeta so soon after, or maybe they would, I'm not sure. But also, I think that Master Chief versus Samus would just have a bigger overall impact. You know, Samus was in the first episode of Death Battle that ever came out. Master Chief versus Samus has been like one of the major fight ideas for so long. Some people call it even a major inspiration for versus, but I can honestly see it going either way. I could see it being Master Chief versus Samus, I could see it being Thor versus Vegeta, I could see it being something completely different. Either way, I don't have too much of a preference regarding which fight is episode 150, and I might be putting way too much thought into this considering that episode 125 was literally this fight idea, but I think it would be different for episode 150. That being said, if they have a fight that has anything to do with Goku or Superman or Saitama or any combination, I can guarantee you that I will not be very happy. So moving on to the next slot, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that we're going to be getting another Marvel and or DC related fight, along with the Batman fight and Galactus versus Unicron if they do it. Even if Thor versus Vegeta happens as well, I wouldn't be surprised if we got another one on top of that, but it is kind of hard to say what it's going to be. For one thing, Ant-Man versus Atom got completely deconfirmed, so we know that one's not happening, and I would also be pretty surprised if they did Scarlet Witch versus Raven or Vision versus Red Tornado or anything that has to do with WandaVision at this point. I just think it's a little too late. If they were going to do it at all this season, they would have done it by now. Of course, though, I could be wrong. Obviously, the best Marvel or DC fight right now is Riddler versus Super Y, but I kind of have a feeling they're not going to do that one. In all seriousness, though, commemorations really are still the best indicator for Marvel and DC fights. I feel like they're more reliable to go off of rather than just picking random fights. And if they are doing a commemoration, I think it's pretty likely they could do something involving Spider-Man. Obviously, they could commemorate Spider-Man No Way Home. They've done a lot of MCU commemorations before, like Winter Soldier versus Red Hood, as I believe that was supposed to commemorate Falcon and Winter Soldier, since that show was originally supposed to come out last year but got moved to this year. But surprisingly, the No Way Home release date actually hasn't moved too much. It was supposed to be in 2021, and as of right now, it is still set to come out in 2021. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were planning a Spider-Man fight and they're still going to go through with it. And if they are really going in that direction, there are a lot of different fights that they could choose from. Of course, there's Black Cat versus Catwoman. That fight's been around forever. There's Scarecrow versus Mysterio, Lizard versus Man-Bat, Sandman versus Clayface. Yes, these are all Spider-Man versus Batman fights, which might not be preferable for everybody, somewhat myself included. But again, I'm not here to talk about fights that we want to see. I'm talking about fights that I think could realistically happen. And I do think that these fights could potentially happen, or at least one of them. I think there's also a small chance we might get Spider-Man versus Ladybug. This fight definitely hasn't been around long enough to be considered a legacy matchup, but Death Battle did say that not every fight was going to be a legacy matchup, so I think it could happen, but of course I can't say for sure. I will say though that a very intriguing thought for me is something like a Spider-Verse Battle Royale. Like how I said that they could put a silly fight into this season since it's something that they're known for, I wouldn't be surprised if they also put a Battle Royale into this season. And I think this would really fit with a No Way Home commemoration, assuming that No Way Home is like a Spider-Verse story, which I think it will be, but you know, who knows. So I think given all the circumstances, this is surprisingly likely in my opinion. Now this whole slot is very loose, I'm not really committing too far to one idea or one type of idea, but what I'm saying is that I think we're essentially going to get another Marvel and or DC fight, probably relating to Spider-Man, which could range from a standard matchup to maybe even a Battle Royale. Again, this is very loose, but that is what I'm confident in saying. And like how they like to use a lot of Marvel and DC fights, they also like to use a lot of fighting game themed fights. So far the only one we have in the season is Heihachi versus Geese, and I would be pretty surprised if we didn't get another one later in the season. In terms of what that would entail, I'm leaning more towards Mortal Kombat, especially since the movie came out. Yes, it did come out a while ago, but Death Battle was also sponsored by it, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were making an episode for that occasion and they just like have it in the bank or something. Also, they just like to use a lot of Mortal Kombat characters anyway, so I think going with Mortal Kombat is the safe bet. And of course, there are a number of choices relating to Mortal Kombat, but I'm personally thinking Liu Kang versus Jago. This one I feel like is different enough from Heihachi versus Geese. They're very different characters from very different worlds, and it just feels like something Death Battle would do. Again, it might not be the most legacy fight out there, but Death Battle still said not all the fights are going to be legacy fights, and this one I still feel is popular enough. There are other fights they could do instead, like they could do Aaron Black versus Jesse McCree from Overwatch, or something like Cinder versus Scorpion if they want to go more bare bones with the similarities, and there are others, but I personally think that Liu Kang versus Jago is most likely. I just have that feeling, you know? That's what I'm going with. Alright, so now we have one more slot for this prediction, and I gotta be honest, I really have no idea what this one could be. I don't have any sort of major basis that I could judge it by. I feel like it could really be anything. Though I will say that I doubt that there's going to be any more Western animated characters because we've already had a good few of them in the season. The fact that we already had 3 of them in the first half makes me think that we're not going to be getting any more because that already is very unlike Death Battle. I would like to see more of them, but I think it's pretty unlikely. So I could be wrong, but for the sake of narrowing down what could be in this last spot, I doubt we're going to get Bill Cipher versus Discord, SpongeBob versus Gumball, Hiccup and Toothless versus Hero and Baymax, Gru versus Megamind, or really anything like that this season. Plus, Bill versus Discord may have already been deconfirmed actually. I'm not 100% sure about that, but that might be the case. But even after that, there are still so many amazing fights that people want to see, including Alex versus Cole, Dante versus Kratos, Joker versus Giorno, Simon versus Kyle, Hellboy versus Nero, and so many more. All of these fights would either make great legacy fights or just great fights that a lot of people want to see that are very popular right now. So it's so hard to just pick one that you'd want to see, let alone pick it accurately. With all that being said though, if I really had to go with just one fight for this final slot, I would go with Madara versus Aizen. There aren't too many anime characters in my selection in this video, or really in the whole season so far for that matter, and it's a big legacy fight that Death Battle has history with in the form of Naruto versus Ichigo. People have been wanting this fight for a while now, and it just seems like the perfect fight that would fit in this kind of season. And I know that goes for a lot of ideas. There are a lot of fights that people want to see in a legacy season, but I think there's slightly more reason to lean more towards this one. That might just be my stupid gut telling me that, but that's what I'm thinking. I'm going with Madara versus Aizen for the last slot. So in case any of you were confused by anything, I'm just going to reiterate everything that I think we're getting. I think we're getting Batman versus Iron Man as the next episode of Death Battle, Dio versus Alucard as the Halloween episode, Galactus versus Unicron as the season finale, Macho Man versus Kool-Aid Man, or at least some kind of joke fight, or maybe some other fight they've talked about on Death Battle Cast, Master Chief versus Samus, which I think would be episode 150, although that could also be Thor versus Vegeta, some kind of extra Marvel and or DC fight, which I think could be Spider-Man related, or possibly even a Spider-Verse Battle Royale, some kind of fighting game themed fight, which I think could be Liu Kang versus Jago, although of course there are other options, and Madara versus Aizen just because it's a very popular legacy fight and I just had to pick one. Those are my official predictions for what I think we could see in the second half of Death Battle Season 8. But anyway guys, that is basically it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Like I said before, I am probably going to get a lot of these ideas wrong, but even then, you know, it was still a lot of fun making this video, so it doesn't matter too much to me. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to give this video a like, be sure to comment down what you think is going to happen in the second half of Season 8 of Death Battle, and if you could subscribe to the channel, that'd be so great. That would really help the channel out. But no matter what you guys do, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, that's it for me. I will see all of you guys in the next video. Peace out.